Hi guys, I'm live. How you guys doing? I just wanted to do a walk rant, but this time it actually has a purpose to it too. Not that the others don't. I'd like to do a little impromptu music theory lesson. I've said several times in videos in the last little bit that I've improved my music theory last night. And rather than just leave it at that and say, wow, isn't that great, I thought I would go over some of the details of it. So if you guys want to learn, listen to some music theory, maybe tune in and see if we can all learn something or at least enjoy it. So, all right, here it goes. Harmony. There's the melody and rhythm, harmony, and melody. Melody comes from harmony usually, at least that's one way of looking at it, and rhythm is independent of harmony and melody in theory, but in practice it has everything you play rhythmically, everything you play melodically or harmonically is in rhythm, at least if you're playing in time, which is when you're playing music. If you're just practicing and warming up, you don't have to play in time, and it's mainly harmony and melody. But since a lot of melody comes from harmony, like I said, so a real crux of music theory is harmony. And there's also tone quality, what kind of tone you have, but that's not really something to be analyzed mathematically. Well, that's just something to be analyzed, but it's not the subject of music theory in this context here. So I'd like to talk about harmony a little bit. Let's just narrow it down to that. Now, most harmonies, chords, are arpeggios. I use those words interchangeably. They can be either, but mostly it's triads, which have 3 notes, hence the word tri, or phrase tri, or prefix tri. And then there's 7th chords, which have 4 notes, because it's the root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th from the bottom up in thirds usually. And they're 4-note chords, and they're usually called 7th chords. And I'd like to discuss both types of harmony and then a little couple context of it, just for fun. Let's start with triads. Okay. Now, there's the perfect fifth, which can be divided into a minor third and a major third from the bottom up, or a major third and a minor third from the bottom up. If it's minor third, major third from the bottom up, it's a minor triad. If it's a major third and minor third from the bottom up, it's a major triad. Simple. And there's 12 of those, 12 minors, 12 majors. So there's that. Then there's diminished triad. Diminished is the diminished fifth, which is two minor thirds. So minor third, and then which form a diminished fifth. There's 12 of those. And a major scale has, an unaltered major scale has 1 diminished triad, 3 minor triads, and 3 major triads in it. The 3 minor triads each inform a minor pentatonic scale, and the 3 major triads each inform a relative major pentatonic scale of each of those, which is 3 major pentatonic scales. And the diminished arpeggio doesn't inform a whole lot, devil in music type of thing. And then the 4th type of triad is augmented triad. Augmented triad is an augmented fifth formed by 2 major thirds, major third, major third. There is not a augmented triad in an unaltered major scale. There is, but there is an augmented triad in the melodic minor scale. There's an augmented triad in the harmonic minor scale, and there's an augmented triad in the harmonic major scale. So the only of the 4 permutations of diatonic scales, the only one that doesn't have an augmented triad is the natural major scale, or modes based on it. Since there's 4 types of triads, and if you consider each root as possible 12 roots, there's 48 chords and that you have from triads, and you can use them in that's because there's 12 notes and 4 chords on each note, and 4 times 12 is 48. Now, 7th chords. This is what I really analyzed last night, but I put the triads first because it's kind of a precursor. Maybe it's simpler, maybe it's more fundamental, I don't know. 7th chords, here we go. I'm going to start with a funny way of looking at it. I'm going to start with the diminished 7th arpeggio first. Diminished 7th arpeggio is minor third, and even minor third or augmented second after that. So it's basically four minor thirds stacked in a row. There's only 3 different ones of those, but I'm going to let it be like I'm going to call it where there's actually we're going to consider that there's 12 of them, because it does matter in a little bit if it's an A diminished seventh versus a C diminished seventh, even though they both have the same notes. I'm not going to get picky and say that those are the same chord. There's basically, to me, there's 12 diminished seventh arpeggios, one on each note of the chromatic scale. Now here's the trick. If you flatten any one of the notes of a diminished seventh arpeggio, you get a dominant seventh chord. Check it out if you want to see that firsthand, or if you already know it, then that's cool. I'll give an example. So if I have a B diminished seventh arpeggio, which is B, D, F, and A flat, and I flatten the B, I get a B flat, D, F, and A flat, and that's a B flat dominant seventh chord, which I got from flatting one of the notes of a B diminished seventh arpeggio. So we have an interesting thing. If you flatten a note in a diminished seventh arpeggio, you get a dominant seventh arpeggio. And also, sharpening 3 notes in a diminished seventh arpeggio is equivalent to flatting one of them in relative terms. So you could also say that if I take a B diminished seventh arpeggio, I would start with B, D, F, and A flat, and I sharped every note except the B. I would have B, D sharp, F sharp, and A, which again is also a B dominant seventh arpeggio. Just like flattening one of the notes of a diminished seventh gives you a dominant seventh arpeggio. Sharpening 3 of them is the same. It gives you also a dominant seventh arpeggio. Hey, good to see you. I'll buy you later today. I'm going to get money today. I'll buy you on the way home. I promise. I'll have cash. Thank you. All right. Well, I'll get it tomorrow. I'll have cash in hand. Thank you. Okay, so there's that little trick, and then there's the opposite of flattening a note in a diminished seventh arpeggio is sharpening one of them. This is interesting because if you take a diminished seventh arpeggio and you sharpen any one, yeah, good to see you, man. Rock on. If you sharpen any note of a diminished seventh arpeggio, you get a half diminished seventh arpeggio. Some people call it a minor 7 flat 5, but to me that's confusing to say because it sounds like you're going to say minor 7 and you don't know if flat 5 is coming or not. If you say half diminished, you know it from the get-go. So, yeah, I know it's hard to say half is diminished of it. It's basically a diminished triad with a minor 7th instead of a diminished triad with a diminished 7th. As in, a diminished triad with a diminished 7th, the 7th is a diminished arpeggio, and a diminished triad with a minor 7th as the 7th is a half diminished 7th arpeggio. So that's how I like to look at it. Now here's the trick. If you take a diminished 7th arpeggio and sharpen any of the notes, you get a half diminished 7th arpeggio. Also, if you flatten 3 of the notes of a diminished 7th arpeggio, you get also a half diminished arpeggio. Let's go on with this. Let's say I have a G sharp diminished 7th arpeggio. So I would have G sharp, B, D, and F. If I raise one of the notes, let's say F sharp, I would have G sharp, B, D, and F sharp, which is a G sharp half diminished 7th arpeggio. Alternatively, if I flatten 3 of the notes of a diminished 7th arpeggio, I also get a half diminished 7th arpeggio. Again, if I have G sharp diminished 7th arpeggio, that's G sharp, B, D, and F. If I flatten 3 of the notes, all of them except the G sharp, I get G sharp, B flat, C sharp, and E. And again, that is, make sure I do this right. That is, wait, let me do this. Make sure. I said G. Oh, yes. Yes, B. I said B. Let me try that again. If I have a G sharp, diminished 7th arpeggio, I have G sharp, B, D, and F. Yeah, that's right. If I flatten 3 of the notes, I get G sharp, B flat. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. That works because that would make a. Wait, I gotta do this right. I said G sharp. G sharp. So I'm gonna. So it's going to be G, B flat, like I said. Oh, I did. And E, yeah, that's correct. That makes a B flat. So let me try it again. That is a B flat half minor. Start again. That is a B flat half minor seventh arpeggio. Okay. And then you can yes. Sharp would be a whole step below G sharp. The flat half diminished seventh chord could also be extended by adding F sharp. The flat half diminished seventh chord could also be extended by adding F sharp underneath it to make an F sharp. Hey, good to see you. Yeah, so like I said, if you take a B flat half diminished seventh arpeggio, and add an F sharp below it, you get an F sharp. An F sharp below it, you get an F sharp dominant ninth arpeggio. That's interesting because it's away from it, which would be G sharp. You just have again F sharp, B flat, C sharp, and E. Make sure that's right. Yeah, that's correct. It's an F sharp dominant seventh arpeggio. So there's a trick there where you can take a diminished seventh arpeggio. We started with G sharp diminished seventh. We flatted every note except the G sharp. Then we added an F sharp and took away the G sharp, and you get an F sharp dominant seventh arpeggio. That's a very cool trick. All it really is, you can also do it like this. You can take a G sharp, do it like this too. You can flatten three of the notes of it to get the same kind of effect. So let's say you start with a G sharp diminished seventh arpeggio. That gives you G sharp, B, D, and F. I'm going to flatten everything except the F. So I'm going to have G, B flat, C sharp, and F. Let me think here. That gives you a G half diminished seventh arpeggio. And then if you take the major third below that, which is E flat, you have an E flat dominant seventh arpeggio, or E flat dominant ninth arpeggio. And then if you take off the ninth, which is F, you get an E flat dominant seventh arpeggio. So a little trickery there, where you start with the diminished seventh arpeggio, flatten every note except the top note, and then replace the bottom note with a note that's a whole step below it, making it a major third below the root, because the lowest note is the minor seventh, or a whole step below the root. In this case, you started with a G sharp diminished seventh arpeggio and ended up with an E dominant seventh arpeggio. Sorry. Yes, you did. You started with a G sharp diminished seventh arpeggio, flatted the G sharp, flatted the B in it, and flatted the D in it, and that ended up giving you an E flat dominant seventh arpeggio. Sure. Yes, E flat. Yeah, because you flatted the G, you flatted everything to the top. So you started with the G sharp, B, D, F, flat the G, then it becomes G, B flat, C sharp, and F. Then that you add the B below it. No, the E flat below it. E flat is below G, and you get E, and you get a dominant. And then take away the F, which is the ninth. If you're in E flat, leaving you an E flat dominant seventh arpeggio, which is E flat, G, B flat, and C sharp. And that's a trick you use a lot in blues turnarounds, especially one I like. I'll go over that with you really quickly here. I didn't finish before I do that, if I even get to do that, I don't know, the instruction video later. I've given you 3 of the seventh arpeggios. It's the diminished seventh arpeggio, the dominant seventh arpeggio, and the half diminished seventh arpeggio. Now there's 2 other possibilities that we use in most music, and that is the minor seventh arpeggio and the major seventh arpeggio. Steve Vai calls these Mr. Rogers chords. They're kind of nice and pleasant and soothing sounding. At least they can be. Or at least they might actually be to somebody. So let's do those. So you take a dominant seventh arpeggio. If I raise the seventh, I get a major seventh arpeggio. So if I take a G dominant seventh arpeggio, I get G, B, D, and F. If I raise the F to F sharp, I get G, B, D, and F sharp, which is a G major seventh arpeggio. If I start with a G, if I start with a dominant seventh arpeggio flat third, I get a minor seventh arpeggio. So if I start with a G dominant seventh, I have G, B, D, and F. If I flat the third, I get G, B flat, D, and F, which is a G minor seventh arpeggio. And then there's you can play a minor seventh and major seventh can have 2 notes in common at any given time. With a minor seventh can have 2 notes in common with a couple of major seventh arpeggios, and a major seventh arpeggio can have a couple of notes in common with the minor seventh arpeggio, some of the minor seventh arpeggios. Let me give an example of that. So if I'm in A, and I have A major seventh, I have A, C sharp, E, and G sharp. But if I keep the A and the E as common notes, and I want an A minor seventh arpeggio, I get A, C, E, and G. So A major seventh arpeggio notes in common with A minor seventh arpeggio. The root and the fifth are the same, but the major seventh has a major third and a major seventh, and the minor seventh has a minor third and a minor seventh, whereas the dominant seventh has a major third and a minor seventh. So you could say that the dominant seventh arpeggio is like in between the major seventh and the minor seventh arpeggio as far as sharps. You just sharpen one of the major seventh. Sharpen one of the notes in a dominant seventh to get a major seventh arpeggio, and flatten one of the notes in a dominant seventh arpeggio to get a minor seventh arpeggio, and then you can do 2 sharps, or you can do 2 sharps or flats to go from a minor seventh arpeggio to a certain major seventh arpeggio. And you can do 2 sharps or flats to go from a major seventh arpeggio to a certain couple other minor arpeggios. More later on that, and more later on my little turnarounds. I love using what breakthrough was last night. I just analyzed the 7th chords in blues turnaround I like, and I analyzed it and hammered it away. That's a Racer X song, Hammer Away. I think it's off of Second Heat, Racer X Volume 2, Racer X Volume 2, Racer X 2, Second Heat, or something like that. Or Racer X Second Heat. And I just hammered away in my head at this turnaround that had all 4-note chords, which means they're all 7th chords of one type or another. And I just kept at it, watching Rainbow Live on Stage, 1977, and what do they call it? I forget. Live in something. Live in Munich. It's live in Munich. But anyway, and I did it. I figured it out. So I hope I shared you guys with some things. Hope you enjoyed it.